Hello, this is Rachel Bookman from Heritage Christian Academy, and I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks for when you are wanting to interpret what you see on RenWeb or Fax when you log into your students' grades. So we're going to go ahead and log in with our district code and our username and password. And I'm going to go ahead and log in as a parent for this tutorial, but if you are a student, you can select student and see this as well. And then once we get to the login/home page, we're going to go ahead and navigate to one of the classes. And I'm going to go ahead and select the only class that my sample student is enrolled in, which is my history class. And I'm going to go ahead and go to Gradebook Report. And I'm going to start off actually in quarter one, just kind of show you a few of the features and what all you might see, because I've kind of purposefully plugged in a bunch of different things so that we can see them. So the main thing is you're going to see your student's name, what class you're looking at, what term you're looking at, and who the teacher is. And then you're going to see these bars, and these are the different categories that your students' assignments fall into. So for example, in my History 6 class, we have two categories. The first being homework, activities, projects, etc., and the second category being tests and quizzes. So the far left column is going to be the assignment. So this is all of the tests, quizzes, activities, the syllabus, study guides, anything you can think of that would be graded is going to be listed here. The PTS column means points, and so this is the number of points that your student earned. And then the max column means out of the maximum number of points possible. And that then gets averaged into this column. So 10 points out of 10 points is 100%. 11 points out of 12 points is a 91.7%. And so on and so forth. So if you want a kind of a quick way to scan down and see how your kid is doing and you think in percentages, just scroll down that average and that tells you 100%, 91.7%, 100%, 93.3%, etc. And so this is a nice column to kind of just scroll down and look through. The next column is the status column. Basically, what you are wanting to look for is things that say valid. If it's valid, that is a good thing. The ones to look out for are the red ones, of which there are two codes. One is missing, and the other one is INC for incomplete. So missing means that the student did not turn in the assignment or what have you. Maybe they were absent and then never caught up with the teacher to get it turned in on time, etc. Or we collected it, they were there and just never turned it in, and so it is missing. INC for incomplete means they did attempt to turn it in, but it was not done to any satisfactory standard, and so maybe we returned it to them and said, you may redo this assignment, and until it's redone, I'm going to go ahead and put in the score of 0. Missing also gets graded negatively. It gets graded behind the scenes as a 0. So until that missing assignment is turned in, it does negatively affect the student's grade. So even though there is no 0 here, it is being graded as a 0 behind the scenes. So do be aware, red basically just means it's being graded as a 0. Absent means the student was absent on that day, but is expected to go ahead and do that work per the absence policy. Pending means one of two things. It means either it's a long-term project, and so maybe it's a quarter-long project, and by the end of the quarter they have to do XYZ, so that assignment is pending, we have not collected it yet, etc. Or it could mean we have collected it, but maybe it's taking us several days or a week to get through the grading because of how extensive the projects were, and so the grades are pending, but yes, the student did turn it in. If you have any questions on which one of those is the one that you're looking at, go ahead and contact the teacher and they can let you know. The last status that you will see is the excuse status. This means the student has been excused from doing that assignment. It does not count against them. That's why you will not see anything in the points or the max or the average column. It's just completely not counted against them. Same thing with absent. It is also not counted against them. Neither is pending. So all three of those, again, because they're not read, are not negatively impacting the student's grade. So while it does sometimes mean there's still work to be done, it is not negatively affecting the student yet. The next column is due, which is obviously the due dates. It's pretty self-explanatory. Do be aware some teachers don't use it as due, but when they uploaded the grade, sometimes it defaults to the date that we uploaded the grade. So if you have questions of when something was due, you can check with the teacher and they'll be able to tell you if you're not certain. The next three categories are curve, bonus, and penalty. You will rarely see anything in either of these categories, columns, and that's because by the time we have calculated if we're grading on the curve or giving extra credit, bonus points, or if something was late and so there's a penalty for that, we've already calculated that into the points when we go into RenWeb to type in what the points earned was. So for example, on this assignment down here, that 1 out of 7 is already taking into account that that assignment was 3 days late, and that 2 out of 20 is already taking into account that that assignment was late 2 days. So that's another way you can check, is sometimes we will upload, hey, something was late this many days, or sometimes we'll just put late, and if you were curious about how many days late it was, you can ask the teacher. The other thing that we sometimes put in the notes column is trends data. So for example, if I notice on a chapter test that a student rushed through it and didn't correct the true-false questions, I might put that in under the notes column so that I can keep an eye out for that when I go to upload future grades. So for example, they did fine in chapter 3 test, but then down here on the chapter 4 test, lo and behold, they did pretty much the exact same thing, and now I see, we've done it 2 out of 3 times. This might be a trend I want to address with the student. Then each of these categories have different ways that they are calculated, and you can understand how they are calculated by looking in the upper hand right corner where it says mixed in this case. They also can say percentage or points. So points is calculated by doing the following. Regardless of the category, it will scroll down the points column, total how many points was totally earned by the student out of the maximum number of points possible, and just give you a simple one final score average. The issue with that in some middle school classes is, like in my history class, I don't consider that a fair means of grading, because I may have a very easy assignment that's worth a lot of points because it's 32 questions, but they're all super easy and it took us 15 minutes of class time to do. But then they have a test, and that test only had 34 questions, and I don't want that to be worth a similar amount of points when I know it was more challenging. I want the student to get more credit for that score than just the point value possible. The other way that it might be graded is percentage, and the way it does that is, again, it just, regardless of the category, RenWeb looks at all of the average percentages and averages them together into an average score. There's not a whole lot of issues with that way, but again, it's using those points in the max columns to calculate what those averages were. So again, the test they got an 82.4% on, and I know that that was a lot harder than that 93.8% average on that assignment. And so again, I don't think that's entirely fair to just average those two together and say that's exactly how they're doing overall. So in a lot of middle school classes, you are going to see the mixed category or the mixed notation, and that means I am taking these categories and I'm actually splitting them apart, and I'm going to be calculating them independent of each other. So this category right here, I'm averaging all of their scores together, and that produces, on average, in homework, activities, projects, etc., they're averaging a 74%. However, in tests and quizzes, they're averaging in this category a 65%. Then I can be super fancy and tell FACS or RenWeb how much I want that category average to be worth. And so here I have said, I want all of the homework, activities, projects, etc. combined to be worth 60% of the grade. And I want their tests and quizzes to be worth 40% of their grade, because while they may have way more homework, activities, projects, etc., I want that to be worth more, but I want my tests and quizzes to be of significant value. And so I can weight those in accordance, and then RunWeb does the fancy calculation of, okay, 74% is worth 60% of the total grade, and this category average of 65 is worth 40% of the total grade, and it averages into a 70%. Whereas if you were to do a straight points or a straight average score, on average, you will find that this actually ends up being a lower score in some ways. You can see that on quarter 2 really easily, where if you were to average these as equal weights, the average would be about a 73%. Whereas because I've said, nope, I want this category to be worth more, and because they're averaging higher in that, that's going to boost their grade up. And granted, it's only 1 percentage point, but sometimes that really matters. And so here they're getting a 74% rather than the equal weight 50% for each category, as if it were every assignment or the averaging of the averages. So that's how you interpret the data on the Gradebook Student Progress Report. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out to the teachers or reach out to Stephanie Burke in the downstairs office, as she is a great resource for you as well. And until I see you again, have a wonderful evening.